So in 2023 alone, the cloud drank about 17.4 billion gallons of physical local water.
Yeah, which is, I mean, it's just a wild statistic to wrap your head around.
Right. Because when you think about artificial intelligence, you probably picture something completely weightless. We talk about algorithms, neural networks, data floating around in cyberspace.
Exactly. It feels like this software phenomenon that's just totally detached from the physical constraints of our planet.
But today, we are bringing the cloud crashing violently back down to Earth.
Here, there's this really profound disconnect between the language we use words like virtual to describe things that actually require massive, heavy industrial infrastructure.
And well, that infrastructure is sparking a nationwide revolt right now. So we are unpacking the sudden, fierce collision between the trillion-dollar AI gold rush and local American communities.
And we've got a lot of ground to cover for this one.
Oh, absolutely. To do this, we have a massive stack of sources for you. We're looking at congressional testimony, proposed federal and state legislation, a Snopes fact check, some local news reports from the Dallas Express and the Bucks County Beacon.
And a highly confidential internal memo.
Yes, a memo regarding a brewing strategic alliance that could fundamentally alter the entire tech landscape. Okay, let's unpack this. Because if you think AI is just draining your phone battery, wait until you hear what it's doing to your local water supply.
Yeah, we really need to establish what an AI data center actually is in the physical world and, more importantly, how it operates.
Right.
So to train and run these massive AI models, tech companies require just unprecedented amounts of computing power. Picture a warehouse like the size of several football fields.
Okay, huge.
Right, and it's packed floor to ceiling with specialized high-end computer processors running at maximum capacity 24 hours a day.
Which has to generate an insane amount of heat.
Oh, an astonishing level of heat. If you don't cool those processors, the silicon and metal will literally melt.
So, how do you cool a building that hot?
Primarily with water. You pump cold water through the facility to absorb the heat, but then, you are left with millions of gallons of scalding hot water.
Right.
To get rid of that heat, the water is sent into massive evaporative cooling towers. Giant fans blow air across the hot water, and the heat escapes into the atmosphere as steam.
But the catch there, and this is what really got me, is that when it turns to steam, the water physically leaves the local ecosystem.
Exactly. That is the critical mechanism here. Up to 85% of the water used in these facilities just evaporates. It does not return to the local municipal supply.
Wow.
Yeah, and a standard data center might use, say, 300,000 gallons of water a day, but our sources highlight a new generation of hyperscale facilities.
Hyperscale. That just sounds intimidating.
It is. A single hyperscale center can consume up to 5 million gallons of water daily.
Which is, wait, the sources said that's equal to the water needs of a town of 50,000 people, right?
Yeah, every single day. And with the explosion of AI, projections show American data centers will jump from consuming 17.4 billion gallons in 2023 to 73 billion gallons by 2028.
That volume is staggering. And it is not just water, is it?
No, not at all.
The sources detail how the heat exhaust from these places is so intense can raise local temperatures by an average of 3.6 degrees, creating these localized heat islands.
Yeah. And then there's the strain on the electrical grid, which is a whole other issue. In the PJM grid, which serves states like Ohio and Pennsylvania, analysts are warning that families could face a $70 per month increase in their utility bills by 2028.
I want to pause on that utility bill figure because Harvard Law School's electricity experts recently documented exactly how this happens.
Yeah, it comes down to how utility companies operate as regulated monopolies.
Right.
When a tech company wants to build a massive data center, the local utility often has to build expensive new infrastructure, substations, high-voltage transmission lines, just to deliver that massive amount of power.
But don't the tech companies pay for that new?
You'd think so, right? But not entirely, and often not mostly. Under the standard regulatory model, the utility adds the cost of that new infrastructure into their overall rate base.
Okay. And what does that mean for you, the listener?
Well, the State Utility Commission then allows the utility to divide that cost among all of their customers to ensure the utility maintains its guaranteed profit margin.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. The corporation gets the computing power, and the local residents see their monthly rates go up to cover the grid expansion.
So it's essentially a hidden subsidy. Honestly, looking at the physical footprint, it's like inviting a wealthy roommate to move in with you.
Right.
They seem great at first, but then you realize They leave the oven open 24/7, they drink all the water in the house, and because of how the lease is structured, they stick you with the utility bill.
It is a very fitting analogy.
Hmm.
And, the strain on power is so acute that tech companies are sometimes bypassing the grid entirely.
There's that situation in Memphis,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. The sources detail this XAI facility in the Memphis area. To power their supercomputers immediately, they just installed and ran over 40 natural gas turbines on site.
Wow, just bolted them on.
Yeah, and according to a lawsuit filed by the NAACP, many of these turbines were operated before the facility had secured the proper air permits. They were pumping out formaldehyde and smog-forming nitrogen oxides in a city already known as a national asthma capital.
Which raises an obvious tension. The NAACP is calling these areas potential sacrifice zones. But, I mean, if you look at it from the tech company's perspective, they are arguing that this is a global arms race.
Right, they claim that if American companies don't build these models at breakneck speed, international competitors will, and the U.S. will lose its technological edge.
Yeah, speed is their highest priority.
Definitely. Waiting 2 years for grid upgrades or clean energy deployment is, in their view, a huge risk to their market dominance and national security.
But local residents are looking at their water tables and their utility bills, arguing they shouldn't bear the physical and financial brunt of that corporate urgency.
Exactly.
Which leads to my next question. If these facilities require millions of gallons of water, jack up local utility bills, and require massive grid overhauls, how are these billion-dollar companies convincing mayors and city councils to sign over the land in the first place?
Well, they utilize a very specific political and legal playbook. When major tech giants, companies like Meta, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, scout a location, their primary tool is the non-disclosure agreement, the NDA.
Yeah, I read that in the sources, and it literally stopped me in my tracks. They are legally silencing the town's representatives.
Yeah. They approach local elected officials and require them to sign NDAs very early in the negotiation process. Now, from the corporate perspective, NDAs are standard practice in real estate to prevent land speculation.
Right, so people don't buy up adjacent land and jack up prices once they hear a major company is moving in.
Exactly. But in practice, this means the deals, the water guarantees, and the tax breaks are locked in quietly. By the time the NDA is lifted and the public is allowed to comment, the construction trucks are already rolling into town.
The community is just presented with a done deal.
Yeah, exactly.
I know what you're probably thinking right now. Listening to this, you might be wondering, is this just NumbyWhyism, not in my backyard? Because aren't these massive construction projects bringing a ton of long-term tech jobs and tax revenue to these small towns?
That is how they are always pitched,
Yep.
as a local economic boom. But what's fascinating here is when we actually look at the data regarding job creation.
It's not what you'd expect?
Not at all. There is certainly a short-term burst of construction jobs while the facility is being built. However, once operational, a moderately large data center only creates about 15 to 30 long-term jobs.
Wait, 15 to 30 jobs for a multi-billion-dollar facility?
Yes, because a data center is essentially a highly automated warehouse for computers. It requires a few security guards, some HVAC technicians, and a handful of IT specialists.
It is not a bustling factory employing hundreds of assembly line workers.
Exactly. And regarding the tax revenue, the sources show that lobby groups like the Data Center Coalition aggressively negotiate massive tax abatements as a condition of building in the town.
Right, which often drastically reduces the financial benefit to the municipality.
Yeah, so the community gives up the water and the power, and they get a fraction of the taxes and maybe 24 jobs.
It is so easy to see why the public feels sidelined. And that exact pattern, this dynamic of corporate secrecy clashing with local environmental resources, is the perfect catalyst for a very specific kind of advocate.
Oh, definitely.
This brings us to Aaron Brockovich.
Brockovich is, of course, famous for securing a historic $333 million settlement against Pacific Gas and Electric in the 1990s over contaminated drinking water.
Right, and in late April of 2026, she pivoted her focus to this AI infrastructure boom, launching a nationwide data center tracking map.
And the response was wild.
I was genuinely in awe reading the numbers on this. Within the first week of her website going live, she received 1,690 complaints.
Yeah, and by June of 2026, her database had swelled to over 5,028 reports spanning 49 different states.
She is crowdsourcing data on existing centers, proposed ones, and those currently under construction, treating them almost like the new pollution. She actually warned that these facilities shouldn't be death sentences or sacrifice zones, just for corporate convenience.
Her involvement is highly strategic. You see, Brockovich is uniquely skilled at mapping patterns of corporate overreach that might otherwise look like isolated local incidents.
Right, connecting the dots.
Exactly. By aggregating thousands of individual complaints into a single national database, she reverses the information asymmetry.
Right.
A small town in Missouri suddenly realizes they are experiencing the exact same NDA tactics as a town in Wisconsin.
And what really stands out in her analysis is the primary grievance. You would think the main complaint would be the noise of the cooling fans or the water usage.
Right, the physical stuff.
Yeah, but according to the sources, the single most common word in these thousands of submissions is transparency.
People feel fundamentally bypassed. When decisions affecting a community's core resources are made behind closed doors, it breeds deep resentment.
So what does this all mean?
Well, the transparency deficit is the catalyst for the mobilization we are seeing. Brockovich's map is not a passive list of complaints. It is the central node of an active grassroots revolt.
Let's look at how that revolt is playing out on the ground because people are actively fighting back. Take Festus, Missouri.
Oh, that's a great example.
Right. The city council there recently approved a $6 billion data center development despite intense public objection. But the residents didn't just complain, they organized at the ballot box.
Yeah, they voted out 4 of the 8 city council members who supported the deal.
And they are currently running a petition to remove the mayor.
We see a similar mechanical shift in Port Washington, Wisconsin. Voters there passed a nation-first referendum with 66% support that actually requires voter approval for the creation of massive tax districts.
So they essentially closed the loophole that allowed city officials to grant tax breaks to data centers without direct citizen consent.
Precisely. And the pushback is jumping from city halls to the halls of Congress. U.S. Representative Rob Bresnahan just introduced a bill called the Local Control Protection Act.
How does that legislation actually change the dynamic for these small towns?
It addresses the legal intimidation factor. Right now, if a small-town zoning board denies a permit to a trillion-dollar tech company, that company can sue the town in federal court.
And most small municipalities simply cannot afford a multi-year legal battle against an army of corporate lawyers, so they just cave.
Right. But Bresnahan's bill protects municipalities from being sued in federal court over these zoning denials. Furthermore, if a town does approve a center, the bill mandates strict local hiring practices and infrastructure mitigation agreements.
Ensuring the tech company pays for the grid upgrades, not the ratepayers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a completely bipartisan realization. Towns in Pennsylvania are aggressively rewriting their zoning laws to require 50 to 400-foot setback distances for these buildings.
They are demanding extensive noise mitigation plans and environmental impact assessments before a single permit is issued.
And at the federal level, politicians like Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are proposing outright moratoriums on new AI data centers until regulatory frameworks catch up.
Wow. Local zoning boards have unexpectedly become the front line in the battle for the future of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, this is where the narrative shifts from a series of local zoning disputes to a major threat to the AI industry's roadmap. And the sheer momentum of Brockovich's grassroots campaign has caught the attention of players fighting AI at the highest corporate levels.
This is probably the most fascinating part of the source stack. We have access to a deeply confidential internal memo from June 10th, 2026.
This memo is incredible.
It reveals that an AI whistleblower named Martin Stevens has officially initiated contact with Aaron Brockovich to propose a strategic alliance.
The timeline here is critical to understanding the leverage at play. Stevens reached out to Brockovich just 2 days after OpenAI filed their confidential S-1 paperwork.
And for context, an S-1 is the massive financial disclosure document a company must file with the Securities and Exchange Commission before going public in an IPO.
Right. So OpenAI is gearing up to go public and raise billions, and right at that exact moment, Stevens is interviewing elite plaintiff-side law firms and reaching out to Brockovich
to set up what the memo calls a dual-front pressure campaign.
Let's look at the mechanics of this strategy.
Wow.
Stevens wants his legal team to attack OpenAI's algorithmic models from the inside.
Okay, so the software side.
Yes. The memo mentions specific algorithmic issues like synthetic empathy failures, which is when an AI model fundamentally misunderstands human emotion in a critical situation, perhaps giving harmful advice.
Right.
And escalation loops, where a model gets stuck in a cycle of amplifying aggressive responses, overriding its own safety protocols.
So Stevens is attacking the software, but he knows the general public might find escalation loops too abstract to rally around. So he wants Brockovich to simultaneously attack their physical infrastructure footprint on the outside.
Exactly.
It's like a military pincer movement. You've got Stevens attacking the ghost in the machine, while Brockovich attacks the machine itself, like attacking a corrupt car company. Stevens is suing over the brakes failing, while Brockovich is mobilizing towns to block the factory doors so they can't build more cars.
It is an incredibly potent alignment. OpenAI's transparency deficit in their algorithmic training perfectly mirrors the physical secrecy these companies use in local communities.
Right, it's the exact same corporate behavior.
Yeah. By teaming up, Stevens and Brockovich threatened to transform a highly technical, complex software dispute into a highly visible, boots-on-the-ground populist movement.
And launching this right on the eve of OpenAI's IPO is designed to force maximum financial and structural reform.
Investors hate uncertainty, and a nationwide zoning revolt is massive uncertainty.
With communities in open revolt, moratoriums being proposed, and a whistleblower activist alliance threatening the biggest IPO in tech history, it begs the question, can the industry pivot? Is there a right way to build the physical infrastructure for AI without draining the local water table?
The physical capability to do so exists right now. Tech companies argue they resort to natural gas turbines and grid draining facilities because clean alternative energy isn't ready. But the data from energy markets tells a different story.
Right.
Solar, wind, and battery storage are currently the cheapest and fastest power sources available to deploy. Wind is the cheapest source of new electricity in the country, and a massive battery storage project averages under 2 years from start to finish.
Here's where it gets really interesting. 2 years is fast for infrastructure, but from the perspective of an AI CEO trying to beat international competitors to market, 2 years is a lifetime.
It's an eternity in tech.
Yeah, the companies are choosing dirty energy because they refuse to wait 18 to 24 months for clean energy deployment. They're bolting on gas turbines simply out of habit and the frantic speed of the gold rush.
That is the core friction, right? Corporate speed versus community sustainability. However, some developers are proving that you can build hyperscale facilities responsibly using BYOP models.
Bring your own power. I saw this in the sources, and it seems like the obvious solution. How does a BYOP model actually work?
The sources highlight Project Jade in Wyoming. It is a massive 2.7 gigawatt data center, but it uses closed-loop water systems.
So they don't evaporate the water.
Exactly. Instead of evaporating the hot water into the atmosphere, a closed-loop system runs the water through massive radiators, cools it down, and recirculates the exact same water continuously.
That's brilliant.
It requires a larger upfront capital investment, sure, but it doesn't drain a single drop from the local municipal supply after the initial fill.
And there's also the energy side of BYOP. The sources mention Kevin O'Leary's massive project in Utah.
Right, that facility is designed to run entirely off a dedicated natural gas pipeline built specifically for the center.
Meaning it will not take a single electron from the local utility grid. The local residents won't see their rates go up because the facility operates on its own isolated island of power.
Yeah, and we are also seeing the beginnings of a shift in corporate behavior regarding the transparency deficit. Microsoft recently announced they're officially going to stop using NDAs in the early stages of data center development.
Oh, wow. So they recognize that the strategy of keeping the public in the dark was backfiring spectacularly.
Yeah, it's creating more friction than it was solving. They realized that if you treat a town like a partner instead of an obstacle, you might actually get your building built.
Exactly. The technology to do this cleanly exists right now.
This raises an important question, because closed-loop systems exist. The models for transparent community engagement exist. As one of our sources notes, the only missing component is the political and corporate will.
The will to demand that the richest companies on Earth build their future on clean abundance, rather than scrambling to bolt gas turbines next to schools.
Precisely.
Well, the race for artificial general intelligence isn't just happening in Silicon Valley code bases anymore. It is happening in the backyards, the water tables, and the zoning meetings of small-town America.
Yeah, Aaron Brockovich's database has proven that when the physical reality of the cloud crashes into a community, that community will demand a seat at the table.
And with whistleblowers like Martin Stevens recognizing the power of that grassroots leverage, the industry is facing a level of organized pushback it has never seen before.
It really is a turning point.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. For all the talk about AI eventually becoming super intelligent and outsmarting humanity, its ultimate fate might not be decided by computer scientists or futuristic safeguards.
Right.
Instead, the ultimate bottleneck for the future of AI might simply be a local zoning board in rural America deciding they'd rather keep their quiet nights and their clean water. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.